Save the date, because the Washington Commanders are now going to officially be sold, and we know exactly when they are voting on it. 1 month now, of course, until training camp as well. A lot going on in Commanders world, despite it looking like a slow week. We're going to talk Quan Martin's latest interview, Jahan Dotson's latest comments, an update on Hard Knocks, and are the Commanders looking to add another potential free agent running back? We get into it all here today on the Sidelines Washington Podcast, episode 95, if you will. Of course, I'm your host and head of NFL operations, Parker Hamlin, and I am joined by my illustrious co-host. He survived the budget cuts, Mr. Josh Kirby, host of the Kirby on Sports podcast. It's our third episode back, Josh. You know, everything feels fine and dandy. Like I said, a little bit of a slow news week, but I still think there's a lot to kind of ponder on and take into consideration. There is a lot going on behind the scenes, but we do have a date for the Commanders. July 20th is going to be presented. It is a special meeting being held with the league owners. It's apparently the only thing on the docket. The general consensus is that it's going to get approved. I mean, apparently, I think it was either Ian Rappaport or Adam Schefter said that it doesn't get to this point unless it is going to be a yes. So, like I said, slow news week in general, but we do finally have the date locked in, July 20th. That's a little bit under a month now. How are you feeling about it? How's your week been? And like I said, you can breathe a sigh of relief because you did survive the budget cuts here at Sidelines. Can't say the same for all those guys at ESPN, though.
Yeah, there's ESPN. I don't really know what to say about all that because all these names that you've seen, you've come to know and love over the years, especially Susie Colbert on Monday Night Football, for crying out loud. And this spans from football to NBA, you name it, making cuts all around. It's just very, very weird to see that happen, especially to ESPN. But I mean, this going back to this ownership thing, July 20th, I agree with you there because I think it does not get to this point, like everybody says, unless the Commanders are 100% being sold. I mean, I feel like there would be some outrageous act or something that we would never expect in a million years to happen for this sale not to be completed. I feel like at this point, it's just the owners voting. And based on what I've heard, what I've seen, that all the owners are in agreement. I don't think anybody disagrees with the Josh Harris group taking over the Washington Commanders. And a tidbit for you. The Josh Harris group is now part owner of Joe Gibbs Racing. So don't be surprised if we see former head coach of the then Washington Redskins, Joe Gibbs, get involved in one way or another. I'm not sure how exactly, but I would not be surprised if we see Joe Gibbs back in some capacity doing something.
And you know what's crazy? Not only did he get spotted with Gibbs, but I think he did also purchase a minority stake in Joe Gibbs Racing as well. So, we were all hoping, Ron Rivera was hoping that this thing would get done as soon as possible. And it looks like that's going to be the case. And Josh Harris says he wants to get the boots on the ground for training camp. This gets signed, sealed, and approved by July 20th, 2023. You have training camp starting 8 days later. We're going to be in Ashburn for that. It's just going to be the beginning of a new era, things kicking off the right way. And I think he's making all the right connections with all the right people. And, some people are kind of talking about how Josh Harris is, might have a little bit of growing pains initially as an NFL owner. But, he does have that experience owning the Philadelphia 76ers. So I honestly trust that Josh Harris is coming into this the right way and with the right people around him. And I honestly am just more than excited that we are really that much closer. We're capping off June here going into July. And by the end of the month, Dan Snyder will officially be gone and training camp will officially be started. So honestly, I'm just itching for everything to get signed, sealed, and approved. And like we've been talking about on the show the last couple weeks, Josh, everything's kind of going according to plan, and everything's kind of coming to fruition. And, if you're in the good graces of Gibbs, I mean, you're already starting off on the right foot as far as I'm concerned. So great stuff to hear about ownership there. Really excited to see how all that stuff kind of goes along as we kind of go throughout the month here. But, obviously there's a lot of focus on the Washington Commanders, not only off the field, but on the field as well. They took 2 defensive backs to start off the 2023 NFL draft. Of course, we've talked a lot about Emmanuel Forbes here on the show. But a guy that we kind of haven't really talked about is Quan Martin, who kind of sat down with Fred Smoot this week and had a little bit of a one-on-one interview. Chad Reuter of NFL.com actually placed Quan Martin on his all-rookie team. I enjoyed the sit-down with Fred Smoot. I don't know if you got a chance to catch it, Josh, but, he kind of talked about, kind of became a lot more personable in general, kind of opening it up to Fred a little bit, but also said that he expects to start off as a nickel corner for the Washington Commanders. Obviously, we know, Bobby McCain's exit, and we know a couple other guys in the secondary itching to kind of get opportunities. But what did you make of the Quan Martin interview, and what are your expectations for him this upcoming season? Because honestly, I think he's a guy that they don't take at the top of round 2 unless they honestly are very high on him. And they are really big fans of his versatility. And obviously there's some, national recognition now from NFL.com putting him on the all-rookie team. But what are your thoughts on Quan Martin as we kind of come out of June?
I've watched his tape earlier, about a week and a half ago, I'd say. I really do like Quan. I feel like he has a lot to bring to the table for the Washington Commanders. Just me in general, I wouldn't necessarily. I feel like it's a stretch to be like just put somebody on the all rookie team unless something really stands out. But again, I'm just sitting here in my studio, and I'm just a scrub that likes to talk about sports. So have the professionals who sort of have deeper analysis on that make that pick. But if Chad Reuter's saying that, all rookie team, he might be somebody to look out for. But I've seen his tape. I really expect great things out of Quan Martin. I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't have a great rookie season for the Commanders. But yeah, I mean, anything can happen in this league. We've seen draft picks come to fruition. We've seen draft picks fail. So I don't really like to put all my eggs into one basket when it comes to the rookie class and the draft picks, but I like what I see in Quan so far.
After Jack Del Rio's interview, and he was kind of talking about what he expects out of everybody coming into this season, I really do think about how there are kind of a couple other people who are kind of ahead of him in the queue in regards to expected responsibility going into this upcoming season. This is a very similar dialogue with Quan, kind of to what we had last year with Percy Butler. Percy Butler was a draft darling. Everybody was very high on him. Everybody was told that, to expect big things from him. It just didn't quite work out like that, except guys like Derek Forrest kind of took a big step forward and became key contributors. A guy who kind of had to, redshirt his initial year in the National Football League due to, some stuff outside of his control. But as far as Quan is concerned, I mean, it's going to be more opportunities for these young guys, but I mean, they're expecting guys like Benjamin St-Juste to kind of step up to the plate as well. I think Quan's going to be in a lot of different sub packages, and it was kind of cool to hear that he's coming in initially as a nickel corner, but like we've talked about in the last couple weeks, to anybody who's been listening, watching, we appreciate you as always. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button and click the bell to turn on notifications when you're notified anything involving the Sidelines Washington podcast. Or if you're listening to us, make sure you guys, of course, give us a follow and leave us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to us on. But if you've been following the show, you know that this type of or time of the year is very experimentational. And because of the experimentation that kind of goes on in this time of the year, there's nothing really concrete about what's going on. So right now, Quan's kind of letting us know they're playing me in the nickel some, but even with the departure of guys like William Jackson III, like I said, they're expecting guys like Benjamin St-Juste to step up. You still have the veteran presence of Kendall Fuller. They brought Danny Johnson back. I mean, I'm not saying Danny Johnson is a world beater by any means, but I feel like Percy Butler, like I said, a very similar dialogue with him. So I think it's a very crowded DB room, and he definitely has that aspect that this coaching staff wants, which is what is it? Position flexibility, the marquee Ron Rivera term and verbiage. So I liked what I heard from Quan. It was nice to kind of get him to know him on a personal level, not even just talking ball. It's a pick that I was very critical of, and I felt like we definitely should have went in a different direction at the beginning of round 2. But at the end of the day, this coaching staff has proven with guys like Cam Kroll that they know how to draft DBs. So a lot like with our guy Josh Harris here, you just got to trust the process. And speaking of process, as you guys know, we got to pay the bills around here. And a part of that process is checking out our sponsors. And we'll give our shout out to our first sponsor here, Prize Picks. Make sure you guys download the free Prize Picks app today. Terms, of course, apply in your state. But if you use our special promo code SSNWFT, you will receive a $100 instant deposit bonus match on your first bet on Prize Picks. Make sure you guys download the app and use our promo code SSNWFT for a $100 instant deposit bonus match. If you're a gambling man, get started today and join the Prize Picks family. Anyways, let's kind of stay with the Young Bucks here for a second, Josh, because, when it comes to like being very like skeptical about picks in general, there was a lot of initial skepticism with the Jahan Dotson selection. Obviously, we were all proven to be wrong in that. I had a very adverse reaction to Jamin Davis being taken. I kind of just sat there. I remember I was at FedEx Field. I was at the draft party. Just got to finish interviewing all the players and stuff. And I watched the draft pick live. I think I was even on Ref the District show. And I had a pretty negative initial reaction. But then you really look at Jahan Dotson's tape. You look at the kind of the kind of player, the kind of man, the kind of role he had on the offense at Penn State. And, you put him across from a guy like Terry McLaurin, and it made all the sense in the world. And he comes in week 1, I was present, and just absolutely torches the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if it wasn't for injury, his numbers would have been even better in 2022. And add stable quarterback play to that, there's no telling what we're looking at number-wise for Jahan Dotson in 2022. But we're on to 2023, and Jahan Dotson says that this is going to be a big year for him. In fact, this is his quote. This year, I feel like I got to come crazy. It's my breakout year. It's what I've been working hard for. I got to make them feel me. So with that being said, we got a stacked offense, especially receiving core here, no matter how the NFL, analysts want to rank them. I think someone had us like bottom 10. But you got C4, you got Curtis Samuel, you got Terry McLaurin, and then you add Jahan Dotson to the mix. What does a breakout season look like for Jahan Dotson, in your opinion, Josh?
I mean, we look at the numbers from last year, 35 receptions, 61 targets, 523 yards, and 7 touchdowns. I mean, those are good numbers. Some people might be like, that's a decent season. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say breakout, double those numbers, triple those numbers. But I'm putting this in a sort of simpler terms. I feel like his season last year was good enough to justify him not going for a breakout season. But again, this is what Dotson said. But a breakout season, I'd love to see him go for over 1,000 yards, receiving yards, 14, 20 touchdowns, maybe. Yeah. Maybe 50, 60 receptions. I do think that Dotson is set to get a lot of targets this season. But just in my opinion, the stats last year look really good, and I only see them getting better and better. And again, I'll say this again, I think he's going to be targeted quite a bit on this Commanders offense this year.
And something we say on the Sidelines Washington podcast is context matters. So I obviously mentioned that, it's a couple games due to injury he missed as well. So we haven't even gotten a full season of Jahan Dotson. And, I mean, he just absolutely looked electric out there. He felt like he was disrespected in a lot of instances. I mean, his route running is just next level. And when he was taken, after I just kind of got through the, kind of the McShay opinion of Jahan Dotson, really did my own homework on it and kind of form my own opinion. There were legitimate conversations going into the season that Jahan could be the tried and true, or last season that Jahan could be the tried and true number 1 wide receiver in this offense. I mean, he has the talent to do it, Obviously, there's no disrespect to Terry McLaurin, but a guy like Terry McLaurin warrants a lot of attention from opposing defenses. So that obviously leaves a lot for Jahan Dotson to reap. So I've always been high on Dotson. Alex, after that initial drawback, I really became a lot higher on him the more I watched. Last year, I mean, he put pen to paper and just looked like a superstar out there. There was a lot of opportunities left out on the field. And I think he's so excited about this upcoming season because he has already built that rapport with Sam Howell. He knows that he's going to have that guy that can get him the ball. And, one thing here, Josh, too, that I think is kind of underplayed is like Curtis Samuel is going to have such a role in this offense that it's, I don't think we're looking at like 14, 15, 20 touchdown seasons for Jahan Dotson, but I'm looking for a little bit of a steady, climb in numbers statistically. I think we're looking at like a 50 reception, 70 targets, maybe 800 yards, 10 touchdowns kind of season. So I do think this is going to be a double-digit touchdown season for Jahan Dotson. You have the quarterback play, you have the coaching, you have the talent. There's absolutely no reason that Jahan Dotson shouldn't go crazy this year, if we're being honest. And you can definitely drink to that because Jahan Dotson is just a world burner in the making. And if they really get everything clicking at the quarterback position, he really is going to go crazy. So I think we both kind of have an idea of what we want to see out of Jahan, what we think Jahan can do. Just got to wait for it to all, kind of click on the gridiron. But, obviously this is a very talented offense and one that was looking to possibly get some help in the running back department. And, of course, we covered that here on the Sidelines Washington podcast, I think a week or two ago, talking about Kareem Hunt. We do have an update on that. Kareem, of course, quoted this from the News Herald and being said, "I'm just being patient. I've had some things come up, but right now I'm enjoying my time with my family. I'm training and working hard, just staying ready. I'm not frustrated at all. It's going to work itself out. Right now, I'm just here to enjoy time with my family and show these kids a good time at this football camp. I know it's all going to work out at the end of the day." So what I get from that quote, Josh, is I don't want to be a Washington Commander. And if they do want me to be a Washington Commander, they need to go ahead and up that price. Don't get me wrong. I'm a big Kareem Hunt proponent. I think he's one of the most talented backs in the league in open field. But I don't think the need at running back is just so dire that they overextend themselves and make just a huge offer to a guy like Kareem Hunt. They're very big on Brian Robinson Jr. Of course, Antonio Gibson expected to have a big role in this offense. They draft Chris Rodriguez Jr. It would have been more of a luxury sign than anything. I think Kareem Hunt knows he can go to a contender late in the season. If a big running back goes down, I think I don't really ever think him coming here was a reality. But what do you make of this latest update about Kareem
Hunt? I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up a Commander if Eric Bieniemy sort of convinces him in a way. But again, I could see that too, him going to a contender later in the season, trying to make a push to the Lombardi. So I could see it going either way. I feel like he'd be a great asset to Washington, but the running back room is just very, very good right now for Washington. So you'd have to move some pieces around to figure out where Kareem Hunt fits in best in Washington's system. But again, familiar ties, Kareem Hunt with Eric Bieniemy back in Kansas City.
Well, on top of that, Josh, you kind of look at, the way the free agency works in 2023 with guys like Odell Beckham Jr. And, Odell's obviously, a marquee talent in the National Football League. I honestly think Kareem Hunt is just as talented. And these guys can kind of hang out in the rafters, be selective about where they go. There are a lot about these one-year signings, waiting things out, seeing who goes down, seeing who's in the playoff hunt, no pun intended. But, if guys like Kareem Hunt aren't coming to the nation's capital, I definitely don't foresee guys like our next player we're going to discuss coming to be a Washington Commander. And that is Dalvin Cook. Michael Lombardi via Sportskeeda was quoted as saying, "Washington should be all over Dalvin Cook because they need a running back that can be electric. Washington is going through an ownership change, so maybe that's limiting how much funds they can spend. We'll know about that come July 20th, as we've already talked about here on the show. But I'm projecting that based on what I think I would be the fits that would make the team better, if Washington and Dalvin Cook could go along with Sam Howell, rookie, and Eric Bieniemy's West Coast offense, I think that would really take a lot of pressure off the young quarterback." So a couple things about this, Josh. Number one, I don't think there is even a timeline where Dalvin Cook chooses the Washington Commanders. Number two, I don't think that the Washington Commanders are going to pursue Dalvin Cook. I think this is a front office and, coaching staff that is very conservative. And I think the most they would buy for is a veteran guy like Kareem Hunt, who they thought they could get on like a vet minimum kind of deal. Dalvin Cook's looking at some big money. I think it's like 14 million odd, a year, something around that. And he wants to play for a contender. And who can't? I mean, really, who can blame him? Obviously he's being linked to the Miami Dolphins. Who wouldn't want him to go there? I mean, they have an absolute offensive masterclass, fastest wide receiving core in the league. Who wouldn't pick the Dolphins? But I guess what I wanted to discuss, Josh, in regards to this is why would we not need a guy like Dalvin Cook, though? I mean, if you really kind of look on the timeline throughout the last week when this story kind of surfaced and Lombardi kind of put out this quote, you kind of saw some Commanders fans saying, we don't want Dalvin Cook. We don't want Dalvin Cook. Even though I don't think this is going to happen, Mike Lombardi does make a point. Who in this running back room, especially now that J.D. McKissic is gone, really gives you that home run hitter ability, like take it to the house kind of ability. Like, maybe Antonio Gibson has shown flashes in the pan of that, but Dalvin Cook definitely would bring electricity and speed and just dynamicness downfield that we really don't have in this running back room in general. So I definitely can't fault him for thinking that we need him, but do you think that there's any traction to this? Do you see Dalvin Cook being tied to the Commanders at any point? Do you think there's any realistic possibility he could join this team?
Yeah, honestly, I don't really think there's any traction. And to be completely honest with you, I don't think he'd be a good fit in Washington. He's a good running back, but I do know I've watched the Vikings over the past couple of years too, mainly because of Kirk Cousins and his trends, and watching different teams like the Vikings for various analytical reasons. But Dalvin Cook, he has kind of an injury problem too. I've seen him get injured, some lingering injuries that sort of affect his game, not all the way, but affect his game a little bit negatively. So just with all that in mind, I just don't really think he'd be a good fit. And I don't think the Washington Commanders really need to pursue Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I mean, the talent's certainly there, and that's the reason he warrants kind of like an OBJ kind of deal and wants to go to a contender. I mean, this is the first-round draft pick we're talking about here, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, coming out of FSU, the guy was a world burner, just an electric running back. But the problem, like you pointed out, injuries, right? And Alexander Mattison stepped in a lot and took a lot of carries when Dalvin Cook was not in. And obviously they re-upped Alexander Mattison and kind of just told Dalvin Cook to skip rocks. You had that, alleged legal trouble as well. So there's really always been something with Dalvin Cook. And, one he was a focal point of this Minnesota Vikings offense, 1,173 yards last year, 8 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry on 264 carries. So, I mean, pretty, solid numbers for Dalvin Cook. The guy can obviously still play in the National Football League, but obviously they're going to have to penny pinch in Minnesota with that Kirk Cousins contract, and you have Justin Jefferson looking at probably the most luxurious contract in NFL history on the horizon. So they obviously couldn't afford to pay Dalvin. They know Alexander Mattison is a more durable role player. They can give him a lot cheaper contract. Tell Dalvin to kick rocks. Dalvin, I think a lot like Kareem, is in a situation where he just kind of has to wait and see what happens. But I think I think Miami is the best destination for him. And, I wouldn't be disappointed to have a guy with that level of talent in this backfield, but I really do think the Commanders are going to be just all right with who they have in this running back room. I was enticed with the Kareem Hunt thing, mainly just from a, fiscal standpoint. I think it would, you'd be getting a lot of bang for your buck there. Kareem's kind of a little bit of a problem child himself from locker room to locker room when he's not really getting the carries he wants to get. But if you get him on a pretty affordable contract, you throw him in this running back room, I like what he could give us, but you can live without it, just like the Minnesota Vikings can live without Dalvin Cook. So I think Dalvin Cook is a great talent, and us Commanders fans shouldn't want them to not pursue great talent, but you can't do it at a cost of, the team's best interest as a whole. So I think ultimately that's the reason we're not going to see Dalvin Cook in burgundy and gold. And of course, we have to give another shout out to our other sponsor on today's show. That is Homage. Make sure you guys use promo code SSN Sports, 20% off at homage.com. That is SSN Sports 21 for all the great and latest apparel at homage.com. So we thank Homage for supporting the show today. Take advantage of our limited time offer with homage. So this is an episode full of updates, Josh. We're kind of getting near the finish line here. We talked a little bit, about Kareem Hunt last episode, and we talked a little bit about Hard Knocks and how we were possibly being tied to the hit HBO series that, of course, follows National Football League organizations as they kind of go throughout training camp, the preseason, and the regular season as well. We got an update here from Mike Florio of NBC Sports and Pro Football Talk as he said that he heard the New York Jets are, quote, bracing hard for the Hard Knocks assignment in the preseason. And, I kind of took a look at the New York Jets social media, took a look at their YouTube. They definitely look like they've got some pretty good production in check for Hard Knocks. So obviously you have Aaron Rodgers in town now, so you really can't fault the NFL for wanting to, or HBO for wanting to go in that direction. But the 4 teams that did meet the criteria, of course, were the Chicago Bears, the New Orleans Saints, the Jets, and of course our Washington Commanders. But apparently the Commanders have publicly expressed no interest in the assignment, and they have made it clear, though, that they will participate if they are selected. So it's not looking very likely that we're going to see the Josh Harris bought out Washington Commanders, at least not in the training camp preseason version, because obviously they do kind of switch it up there on Hard Knocks and do some stuff later in the season. Are you excited, disappointed? Do you think there's still any hope? How are you? Where are you kind of gauging on the whole Hard Knocks update here from Mike Florio?
I mean, the short and sweet answer. I mean, it doesn't really bother me either way. But if the Commanders were on Hard Knocks, it'd be very fun to watch. But it doesn't really make a difference to me either or.
Yeah, I've always been a big proponent of Hard Knocks. I enjoyed it. I've talked about that a couple episodes ago.
I mean, it's a great production. Don't get me wrong, but it's like if they skip out on the Commanders, it's not like the end of the world there, And
the more I think about it, it's more like just not yet. Even if they just waited to do it like in the regular season, I think that would be better than doing it right as Josh Harris is coming in, right as ownership changes. I mean, it's a juicy storyline. It's something you want the cameras rolling for, but so is Aaron Rodgers, going to the New York Jets. So it's kind of some attention that I feel like, we already got enough eyes on this organization just due to the dark cloud that has been following it for so very long. I kind of want a little bit more of a foundation to be built before we put that much of a microscope on the organization. Of course, I'm never going to be mad about my team getting that kind of like showcase, but ultimately, I just think that's kind of a bad time for the Commanders to do it or be involved in that kind of thing. So obviously, I'm not really excited or disappointed. I'm just kind of indifferent on the whole thing. Would have been cool if it would happen, but I'm not losing any sleep over the fact that it's not. Let Sam Howell quietly learn how to be the Commanders' quarterback. Kind of let this ownership thing kind of go over smoothly. Just let this organization go into a new paradigm with the least amount of distractions as humanly possible. That's how I feel about it. So, and of course, the cameras roll on Hard Knocks throughout training camp, and we got another update. It looks as if training camp is never returning to Richmond, Virginia. Of course, this is a quote from Michael Phillips, the Richmond Times-Dispatch, friend of the show. He said the ship has sailed. Getting that quote from John Molster, who is the Richmond Economic Development Authority Board chair member. He says there are no plans for them to come back for the camp, which, I mean, really isn't that much of a surprise. That's the first time we've kind of really seen it in writing or heard it kind of verbalized, which is really sad. So, kind of as we close out the show here, Josh, you and I are very excited about training camp coming up here in July. What is your kind of favorite memory from training camp when it was in Richmond?
This is funny because you realize I never went to training camp in Richmond.
You
right?
never went to training camp in Richmond?
No, but I'll tell you the one memory. You were walking with your mask on back when it was COVID, and you saw Tanya Snyder, and you were like, hey, can we get a picture? But you're like, how do we do this? Because like some people are like, not with COVID, social distancing and everything. But that was the only memory I took away from you, but I never went.
Well, honestly, I'm
sure you remember that one, right?
I do. That was actually a very interesting story. So for what Josh is referring to, to anybody who's listening, watching, is I think it was the year it was you, me. No, not you. Excuse me. It was me, Rio. I want to say it was Tay or Todd. It was a good group of people. We had VIP access. It was just absolutely incredible. I got to talk to Jason Wright. meet a bunch of members of the organization. And, while we were over there kind of watching the guys practice, and it was very precautious because of COVID, lo and behold, Tanya Snyder walks right by us. And, we walked up to her, introduced ourselves, and wanted to take a picture with her. And she had her, of course, entourage of people around her. And they were just like, hey, keep your distance, keep your distance. I'm like, look, I'm a fan. I just wanted to take a quick picture. The lady smelled like money, man. I mean, she definitely had the aura, and we were able to snap a quick picture, and that was really cool. I've had a lot of really cool conversations with a lot of alumni. I've talked to Chris Cooley, Hightower. I mean, I could sit here and list all the people that I've had really awesome conversations with in Richmond. And, what I really liked about Richmond, obviously, was, kind of the location of it all. You were kind of like, you had a lot of really great spots to kind of go get a drink at afterwards. Keith, Rio, all them guys know about that. Richmond just made a lot of great memories there. And, I remember when back when I was in high school, when they first, of course, introduced it in Richmond, and my entire family went, and it was just awesome. The year after RG3's rookie season was absolutely bonkers. And, it was always awesome to only have to, drive a little under an hour and just go, see the team up close and personal. And, I definitely will miss that, because that drive to Ashburn is just absolutely brutal. But ultimately, that's still not an excuse for me to miss any training camp of any kind. And it was also just it was so much more accessible to the public too, Josh. Like, there wasn't all these, like, first come, first serve, having to get tickets. Like, you would just show up, and the players were practicing. And, I definitely missed that. But, different world we live in now, COVID and all that stuff. I have a lot of great memories of Richmond. I think if I had to pick out a favorite, it was probably when we were scrimmaging the New York Jets and Terrell Pryor got absolutely dogged out by DJ Swearinger. I mean, that was one of the funniest things I've probably ever seen. DJ Swearinger, two-spoon swagoo, baby, let's go. One of the best Washington Redskins of my fandom. But, I mean, it sucks to see that thing come to an end, but I'll always be grateful to the memories. And, sometimes it's not goodbye, it's see you later. So who knows how this turns out in the future. But, just COVID really put a damper in that. And I feel like, that facility is not going anywhere. So who knows what will happen in the future. But right now, training camp is in Ashburn. But,
you missed one
it's
key
warm
point.
outside. What'd you say?
You missed one key point. One key memory you missed. You were Jason Wright's up there in the luxury suite drinking some red wine, and you all convinced him to come down and talk to y'all for the vlog. So that was a really good
actually,
memory.
I'll tell you about that too. So Jason's followed me for some time now. That was actually one of the first times me and him were able to talk one-on-one in person. I'd hit him up on Twitter. I said, hey, I'm at training camp, just so you know. Jason was like in the building and everything, like, doing his thing. And he said, hey, he's like, before you go, he's like, come over and talk to me. And, he came out there, I think he was eating fruit, and just talked to all of us, and just, was just so awesome, down to earth, just so engaged, and really just cared about what everybody had to say, and really, made us content creators feel important. And that was a very special moment for me and everybody that was there. And, with that being said, everybody's going to talk about Ed Sheeran playing at FedEx in his little Commanders jersey being, the big newsworthy thing of the week. But I just had to say bravo to the new ownership for welcoming Jason Wright as a part of the team. Of course, that's being reported as late as we're recording here on June 30th, 2023 at 8 p.m. But apparently it's being reported now, I think by Nikki Jabala, that Jason Wright is going to be the team president moving forward with the Washington Commanders, even under new ownership. So I say that's just a home run move by this organization. As far as like metrics are concerned, people skills, Jason Wright does it all, and he does it well. And obviously we are a pro Jason Wright podcast here on Sidelines Washington. Love you, Jason. Glad you're going to be a part of things moving forward. He has been a part of the positive culture change here with the Washington Commanders. So happy to hear that for Jason. But all in all, that's all we got here for the Sidelines Washington podcast, episode 95 here this week. Of course, if you're watching and listening, make sure you guys click the description below. You'll find the link tree, which of course leads you everywhere. We're on TikTok, guys. Yeah, we're on TikTok. So make sure you give us a follow on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. You can find that by clicking the link tree below. And of course, I'm the head of NFL operations for the Sideline Sports Network. So with that being said, if you're trying to join the family, send me an email, sidelineswft@gmail.com. No underscore. Accidentally said that. But if you're trying to join one of the fastest rising sport networks in the country, make sure you email us. We are always looking for contributors. So, Josh, slow news week, but let's do it all again. Probably this time next week. What do you say?
Let's do it again soon, buddy.
Until then, this is the SSN signing off. Peace.